Hey everybody, Sinus here. Welcome to the first run of the new Monster Trains League between myself, Narninian, and Never Nathaniel. So the way this league works is it's a weekly competition that uses 6 different seeds, so 1 video per day with 1 day off for each week. And each week we go for a particular win condition. In this week it's 6 seeds, and we're running for the lowest combined in-game time across all 6. And I've run a couple of the seeds already, and I'm honestly not very good at this. Not having a fixed strat is pretty scary. I can get a strat going that is usually somewhat effective, but can I also execute it as fast? So far the answer has been no. But I'm excited to work on this sort of area, just because I think it's cool. So, I just created a seed. Trips Sense Excel. That will be coming up as the next video after this one. And then I'm going to get into things with one of the other seeds, Adapted Missile Large. This is Narninian's seed. Each of us is making 2 seeds for this challenge. You can see Nate, Never Nathaniel, has a 14-minute time, and Narninian has a 12-minute time. So to remain competitive in this seed, I have to get 12 to 13 minutes. We've got a Steel Enhancer and Collection of Tales in a Hellhorn run that starts with 2 Rituals of Battle, which is pretty strong. So I choose Brawler Prince, and then I am moving on to fight 1. Gathered Clergy, I choose to take Armor Emblem in hopes of getting a strong unit to put in front of Brawler. Because of Collection of Tales, he's a very strong unit, offensively speaking, which is really good to see. I send him here to make sure he can clear the next wave and safely deal with the last wave. That gets rid of 2 clergymen and doesn't really change much in terms of the actual fight itself. And with that, it also eliminates the resolve trigger. So that's fight 1 taken care of. Welder Helper is the choice for some defensive scaling, and then I choose Alpha Friend because I want to play with the buffed one, and neither of those units are particularly impressive tanks. Alpha Friend isn't either, for that matter, but it's probably better than the alternative, especially when it has a Heartstone on it like it does here. So that's a pretty strong method of offensive scaling. But it lacks the defensive power necessary to take on the late game. So I am kind of going in a little bit blind here with the assumption that I'm going to get something stronger coming up. This doesn't really go well. You'll see later that things get quite tough. But for now in the early game, I've got 50 health on this scaling behemoth, so he's good to do pretty much whatever. Should not have taken this either. And spot removal might also have been nice, but I was using a primarily enhancement-based strategy, and I just kind of stuck to it for better or for worse. I did get Gurg's Goad, which makes the Alpha Friend a triple striker, and Railforger's Hammer allows me to play the Imp, where I couldn't otherwise have done so. I'm not very happy with my performance on this seed, honestly. But it is what it is, and I only get 1 try at these. Which, honestly, me with my cushy resetting speedruns, that's not something I'm used to. And perhaps I am being a bit harsh on myself here. But I was expecting to do a little better than I did on this seed. Here, though, Daedalus is taken care of. The problems are definitely going to come later. I'm not scaling fast enough, and I really need to be. I think, in retrospect, that should have been energy, for starters, and the mistakes are going to continue to cascade from there. In retrospect, this should have been the right side. Holdover Razor Sharp Edge did serve me well, though, so it was a decent pickup regardless of what it actually should have been. Again, should have purged instead of re-rolled. And then I might have also wanted to take Wrathful here and make it a front line, just so that Alpha Friend would have more time to scale. It's acceptable that I didn't, but it's, again, just the mistakes just kind of cascade in this run. Razor Sharp Edge, Steel Enhancer, Ritual of Battle. It's definitely a very strong run offensively. My damage is quite high. No need to worry about that so much. The issue is a certain stealthy harpy in the next ring. Is Crystal Cloak a harpy? I'm not sure what Crystal Cloak is, but they're definitely stealthy. And that's the issue. The 8 stealth basically just wipes out my Alpha Friend. So I know I have to worry about that. Should have taken Adaptive Mutation here for sure. That actually would have saved many of my woes coming up. Because this next fight took a couple of resets. I've chosen to just splice those out for the sake of time. And there isn't yet a rule against resetting fights. I think there probably should be. But don't hate the player, hate the game, so a couple resets later, here is the fight that succeeded. And even it was pretty close. And because my back was up against the wall here, I had to think about everything, which of course is much slower than it should have / could have been. Every decision was very, very well thought out, which, as good as that may seem, is actually a bad thing in a speedrun. Which this technically isn't, but it really is. It acts like one, even though it's the League as opposed to speedrun play. Specifically, you can see I'm using all of my offensive scaling cards, or what are normally offensive scaling cards, to get rid of these stealthy units and ensure my Alpha Friend has enough oomph to survive the coming stealth waves. I use Tiresome Climb here to save a bit of damage, keeping my Welder Helper alive. Razor Sharp Edge on the... Again, this is taking too long, but it ends up going on, I think, nothing? I don't think I play it. I indeed do not, and this just barely, Alpha Friend survives with 5 health, but finally mows down Crystal Cloak. Reinforce is takeable, but I chose not to do it, which I will actually stand by. Focus Growth could have been good, but you'll see why it ended up being bad shortly. It's really rather obvious, honestly. Purge out Train Stewards. Now that Crystal Cloak is done, they're not doing much, if anything, for me. And then check for unit upgrades. I was looking for Endless Imp, but unfortunately I didn't find it. And re-rolling would have been too expensive. That's another thing I should have done, is I should have taken coin trials that were offered on the past couple rings to get more Purge and more unit upgrades, because Endless Welder Helper would have saved my entire run easily. Although from here on out it's less bad, it's still a bit messy. I will not lie to you and say it was good. And this fight in particular requires a lot more brain usage than it should. Like, I had to try to calculate damage thresholds here. You can see I'm not exactly in my element here, which I think is good, considering things like all clans races where I am going competitively against these folks are more up my alley, since I'm normally a pure speedrunner. Whereas Never Nathaniel and Narninian do things like score play and daily challenges that I don't. So I'm glad to be on the back foot here, honestly, but it doesn't feel good when I'm playing it. Oh, woe is me, I know. So here's rare footage of me screwing up, and it's only rare because I don't normally upload failed attempts. You should look behind the scenes and see exactly how much I have to grind for some of the world records I upload. Because the answer is quite a lot, I'll tell you that much. And since classes have started up again for me, I've had much less time to do that grinding, which is why to some extent, uploads have been less frequent these days, and that in combination with how non-competitive single-clan speedruns are, makes me want to take a break from world record like speedrun.com sort of things and go to more variety content. This league is the first of stuff like that. I'm also going to be transitioning towards more educational content with the speedrun guide. I may also make some annotated videos once I get better at editing. But I just think the speedrunning community is a bit on the back foot here in terms of competitiveness and participation, I guess. And I want to make it more active. So I'm also considering making a sort of public speedrun league, kind of what we're doing, like what we're doing this week, but recurring, that you all can speedrun with a lower barrier to entry without needing to know specific mechanics and strats and all the things you need to know to perform well here in standard speedrunning, what you normally see on my channel. Being able to, actually being forced to optimize on the fly like this, which is something I'm good at when I know what I'm looking for, but when things are more up in the air, like they are here, it is much harder for me to do. But for some of you, it may be easier. And getting that barrier to entry much lower is kind of what I'm looking for by making the Speedrun League. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in participating in something like that. And I'm happy to provide advice or guides or walkthroughs as well, so I can more easily get my fans into this speedrunning thing. All, like, 80 of you. Which, to be fair, is a lot. It's a lot more than I expected to have by this time in my embryonic YouTube career, and I'm really glad that all y'all are watching and have subscribed. Cough, cough. But it really does mean a lot to me. Though it may not seem like it after that. So a bit of purging later, the obvious choice is restore and focus growth, just because with Heartless they do nothing. And then I drop the cost of Ritual of Battle and give it double stack. This was a good call. I will give myself credit where credit is due. That could have been, but I forgot which Seraph I was going up against. If this had been... In fact, none of the Seraphs would have been kind to this run. Chaste would have purged my rage that was otherwise unpurgeable. Diligent would have made my spell management much harder, especially because of the blights. And here's the reason why everything is so dicey. Hornbreaker Prince didn't have an attack stat for much of this. Alpha Friend, thankfully, starts off with enough attack to begin to scale, and it scales upward much faster than Temperance scales it downward, even though I have only one setup. So I'm gonna put most of my eggs into the Alpha Fiend basket, getting it quick 60 by 3 on turn 2. But again, this requires so much thinking that you can see how slow it is in comparison to a standard run, and it is slightly slower after resets than Narninian, but a little bit faster than Nate. Despite how bad this feels, it is a new experience for all of us, and I'll link their perspectives on this particular seed in the video description. I'm not sure if all of them are up yet, but I will make sure to keep an eye on that and put them up when they are. Alpha Friend's obviously got the offensive juice to deal its 3 attacks and one-shot anything on the field. That's not a huge worry at this point, but what is that Hornbreaker Prince isn't attacking, and in any floor with more than 3 units, that's a problem. So I'm going to start beefing up Hornbreaker with most of my buff cards coming up. So Quick goes on it. You can see that Light Wings in the back isn't going to die until I do this. And now Hornbreaker's got the strength to kind of play cleanup for the Alpha Friend. Also, shout out to this Magic Power Torch. It was surprisingly effective. And with what I am not going to lie to you and say was a very, very lucky draw of the Tiresome Climb. If I had not gotten this, life would have been a lot harder. But because I can clear the damaging enemies and Daze Seraph in one fell swoop with this card, I'm able to kill. And because my offensive scaling is so high, it's not that hard, as otherwise it might have been. Also, hope you all enjoy it with googly eyes. If you want me to turn them off for some reason, please let me know. But there it is. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. If not, comment down below with how I can improve. Check out Never Nathaniel and Narninian's videos in the description. And have a good one. This has been Sinus.